Get it right up there. All right.
All right. So my name is Whitaker. I am running for Spokane County Auditor. I have been an accountant for over 18 years, a little over 18 years now. I have a small tax and accounting practice here in Spokane. My wife and I both own small businesses, so I have an accounting business, she has a cleaning business, and we have 2 kids and 2 grandkids. One is 6 months old, so she's really tiny and awesome. We basically help raise our grandkids, so we send our grandson to Northwest Christian School, and then we homeschool him every day after school, so we're very involved in his education. And I'm running for Spokane County Auditor because I believe that we need someone in the auditor's office who's qualified to do the job. And let's just use Vicki Dalton's words that she's said for the last 20 years every time she runs, that this is a position that you need to have qualifications for. And I'm the only one sitting up here who has qualifications that she's talking about. I have a bachelor's in accounting. I am a federal whistleblower. I was the CFO of a national precious metals firm, and I found out that they were defrauding our customers and then uncovered systemic fraud in the precious metals industry. And I did the right thing and quit my job and filed SEC and CFTC whistleblower complaints against the company. And since then, spent the last 8 years and have helped victims of financial fraud recover over $30 million.
Wow. And
I don't charge a dime. People reach out to me. I wrote a book about my experience. It's in the back. It's completely free. About my experience, and people reach out to me and want help getting their money back, so I help them. I'm running for county auditor because I believe that we need someone who doesn't just use trust as a slogan, but someone who's actually done the right thing and stood up for people when it mattered and when no one else was looking.
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Cathcart, and I am running for Spokane County Auditor. And the reason is that I believe that we need to focus on strengthening public trust. And I believe that the auditor's office is the center of building that trust in our community. I'm a father. I've got 2 kids, one who's 5 and the other 9 months. And I do just have to share very quickly that last week our son had his very first t-ball game and was awarded with, recognized as being the player with the best sportsmanship. And so my wife and I just could not be more happy to see our son doing so well like that. In addition, I serve on the Spokane City Council. I was elected in 2019, re-elected in 2023. And in my time on the City Council, I've held numerous leadership positions, chaired our Finance Committee, I've been on the Budget Committee, leading on budget reforms. I currently chair the Regional Health District Board. I currently chair the Growth Management Steering Committee of Elected Officials. I currently chair the Northeast Public Development Authority. I sit on the STA Board and a number of other boards and positions. And I believe that I am the most qualified in this race, and it's because of the leadership and management experience that I have and that I will bring to the table in this role. I believe that the auditor needs to, especially today, with so many questions around the veracity of elections, needs to credibly be able to address whether or not our elections are secure, and needs to be able to credibly raise questions where they may exist if that security is compromised. And I believe that I am the candidate who can do that. I have a broad swath of endorsements that run the gambit from most of our elected leadership to a number of Democrats, independents, organizations including the Farm Bureau, who I'm very proud to have the support of. And I believe that there are some great, substantial reforms that we can bring to the auditor's office. They need to be meticulously implemented in coordination with the employees, but we can, I believe, offer a number of improvements over the course of the next couple of years that will improve the office and improve your perceptions of voter security, how your tax dollars are being spent, customer service, and I believe that that is something that's very important. So this runs the gambit on the election side from better notification of your ballot and it's where it's located from coming to you or heading to the office and being collected and counted. Post-election audits, I believe we can substantially increase post-election audits in an objective way to make sure that people have the confidence in our elections and the outcomes that you are seeing reported. And further, I believe that we need objective standards when it comes to verification. Rather than just signature verification, where I have heard a number of people concerned about their ballots being intercepted or going to the wrong place, signatures can be subjective. And oftentimes, signatures can go through that are not valid, and sometimes the ones that are valid are caught and don't go through. And so an objective standard could be a secret code that only you in the office would know. And this is approved already by the legislature. You got to coordinate with Secretary Hobbs to make this work. We've done a pilot already, tested in Mason County, and I would like to bring these types of improvements to the auditor's office for elections. On the financial side, I believe that there is a number of things we can do, but most importantly, we need an open checkbook. We need an ability for folks to drill in and see exactly what is it that their dollars are being spent on, what are they getting for those dollars, and what is the enabling authorization for those dollars to be spent. These are very, very critical things. We also need to look, of course, at controls in the spending that we're doing. We need to make sure our payroll system is implemented appropriately so that folks are being paid the way they should be. And on the reporting side, there's a number of efficiencies that we can offer within the reporting system that's going to go in place next year. I'm very excited to have this role. I'm very fortunate to have the support that I've got, and I would very much appreciate to have your support. If you have questions after this event, cathcart4spokane.com is the website, and would love to engage with you afterwards as well. Thank you so much.
Anybody with questions?
Ben Munn, and I have a question for you. I think on the auditor's office, you got to purge it. This is business. In my business, if somebody moves, I purge it. In the auditor's office, we have millions of people on the rolls. This shouldn't be there, right? How many people are over 100 and are dead on the rolls? How many people have moved out? There's no follow-up, there's no logistics of how to do that. Example, my son moved out 4 years ago. Guess what? We still get his stuff. I send it in, delete it, it doesn't get deleted. I represent tens of thousands of families that go through this. If you want to fix this, you start with purging so you know what you have. And then we got to get some voter ID on this thing, right? In my doorbelling, we ran into empty lots that had people voting. 30 people on an empty lot voting. Come on, people. This is not this isn't rocket science. So the question I have, logistically, how are you going to fix that? What are you going to put in place to get that done? What programs are you going to do? A, B, we want to hold you accountable for that. We're tired of the noise. Fix it. How are you going to do that?
Yeah, so many of you probably are aware that I run for Secretary of State in 2024. And I debated Secretary of State Steve Hawes on this exact issue. And he said, oh, there's no issue. We have Eric. Eric's fantastic. And then 6 months later, they get rid of Eric. So Eric was not so fantastic. When I became a citizen, so I'm British by birth, and I became a citizen in 2015. And when I became a citizen, I had to deal with 3 federal agencies. USCIS, Social Security Administration, and the Department of Homeland Security. So Secretary Hobbs and I were debating in 2024, and I said on the debate stage that fixing the voter rolls is as easy as communicating with those 3 federal agencies cross-referencing who are citizens and who are not with those agencies against our voter rolls, and then purging those that aren't. And if people are found to have voted that are non-citizens, refer them for prosecution. Now, do you know what the legislature did in 2025, immediately after that debate? They passed a law banning the county auditors from being able to communicate with federal agencies and provide information to and from federal agencies, so we could not do that as county auditors. Now, isn't that something? Why didn't they do this before? Well, because they hadn't thought about it. So we need someone in the auditor's office who is proven to think out the box, that understands how to do these things, that understands how elections work, and can and will be willing, Ben, to look into the ways that we can clean our voter rolls. And if the state pushes back, you know what we have? We have a very, very big bully pulpit. And we ought to be using it and shining light on things that we need to fix in the auditor's office.
Yep.
Yeah, first off, completely agree, voter ID is essential. That needs to happen. But I will also tell you that with that, we need to make sure that there is a program to ensure that nobody faces an obstacle to receiving their documents, their identification. This is why we've never been able to get these policies in place in the past. Because the rhetoric is too great that it is going to create significant barriers. And so we need to get beyond that. And making sure that folks can get access to this is simply good governance at its core. Government requires identification to access federal buildings, require identification to access government programs. We should require it for voting, and in this case, we should also make sure that folks have access to that information. As far as cleaning the voter rolls go, we need to do everything we can within our legal means to clean the voter rolls, making sure that folks who are deceased are removed from those rolls. We need to make sure that we are coordinating to the best we can at the state level to make sure that folks who have moved across different counties are being removed in a timely manner so that they are not receiving multiple ballots in multiple counties and potentially creating fraudulent outcomes in our elections. And this is just basic stuff. One of the biggest things that we do see, though, when it comes to fraud is, frankly, moms and dads who vote for their kids. Their kids away at school, and so they sign their signature, and they're trying to do a good thing. It's not like it's nefarious intent, but it does happen frequently. That is a big source of the fraud, so to speak, that happens. It should not occur. We have to make sure that we stop it, but that is a substantial thing that does happen in our state. And so that's where I come back to these objective standards, where making sure that folks cannot just simply sign a signature that can pass through a subjective verification model, and making sure that those ballots cannot be counted no matter how hard somebody tries to potentially intercept or vote with a ballot that is not in their name. So there's a number of things we can do. I would love to coordinate. I think the politics of this have become so insane, unfortunately, when it comes to clearing the voter rolls, but we should look for a third party who can help us to audit, to take the politics out of this, to make sure that everything is on the up and up. And I think that to me is frankly a really good idea that we can implement, and that would help remove the politics, take away the R versus D, the right versus left, and just say, you know what, we want a fair, effective, and secure election. And I just want to say hi to the camera.
Any other questions? How would you change so that there's a whole bunch of experienced auditors sitting in these chairs waiting to take over the position in-house? A way to replace yourselves. How would you replace yourselves so that these chairs are full of experienced auditors in Spokane County? So you're in-house training, all that kind of thing, so that you're confident on how the machine works?
Yeah, I'll take this first. I mean, I think to the best I can take from the question is, how are we going to make sure that we have an incredibly competent staff that could, in theory, take over this role should we be unable to continue on or leave and somebody else wanted to step up from internally in the office or not. And I think that that's a really good question. Obviously, making sure that we have a very high quality, competent staff is going to be very important. And I think right now we have a really solid deputy auditor in Tim Donovan, who has done a great job. I've worked with him at the city. He's highly respected, and I think that he has helped to cultivate a number of the great employees that they have there. But you can't rest on your laurels. You can't stop there. An elections director is a very challenging position to fill because you have to be certified, you have to be trained, you have to have the right qualifications for that. And so making sure that we do have somebody who is next in line to become the elections director is going to be very important. In fact, we just had this issue occur. In March, Mike McLaughlin, longtime elections director at the county, had to retire for health reasons, kind of unexpectedly. And Ryan, who is Dosh, who's there as his number 2, had been in training to kind of take over that role for a number of years, frankly. And so he is now fulfilling that position. And of course, it's really inappropriate to judge, I think, somebody at this point, and I don't know Ryan well enough, but observing him and making sure that we are ensuring that we have the highest and best, most qualified people as our elections director, and then the other department director leads is going to be very important. But we also need to have a strong number 2 who, in the case of somebody needing to leave, can take over. And so there's a lot of opportunity that we can take to go out and seek good individuals to take on these roles. But really, fundamentally, at the end of the day, there's a union process. There's a lot of other factors that go into this that you can't entirely control. And I know from just a lot of my experience in government how that works and how that can limit what your options and choices are. But I really do believe that we've got a good staff. We're going to make it even better, and we're going to find good folks who can take on these positions if we can't continue on.
So I think the first thing is that we need someone at the helm who has a track record of being able to build teams. I've run small accounting teams, large accounting teams, middle of the road accounting teams. At my, I guess you could say, height, I had a staff of 35 underneath me. I'm the only one up here that's run a staff that big. And the way that you build good benches is you don't necessarily have to recruit from the outside all the time. You can identify the folks that are already there and the good attributes that they have, and you can elevate them. And what that does is it actually builds a lot of morale within the staff, within the office, because people now see, well, hey, I'm not just going to be stuck here forever. There's actually a way for me to progress and move up. I do believe that having a good chief deputy under you that fundamentally understands each office and the core functions of the auditor's office is really pivotal. But it all starts with me. I have to go in and I have to understand things from the ground up. Now, one of the huge advantages I have is I got accounting on lock. I've been doing it almost 20 years. So on day one, when I go into the auditor's office, if I have a staff member provide me a report and tries to BS me, it ain't gonna fly. I'm gonna know instantly whether or not that person is shooting me straight. I think it is very, very important to build good leadership within each department. And we can continue doing this by recruitment and also by promoting from within.
Thank you. Is there another question out there? And then we'll have this the last one.
Thank you. So back to election integrity and voter being trusting the election and cleaning up the voter rolls. So it seems to me to overcome all of those things by doing same-day in-person voting. People that are dead are not that are off to college in another state are not going to be voting if they're not there and shouldn't be voting. If they should, they need to come home and vote or apply for absentee ballot, which is perfectly acceptable for military, elderly. There are certain cases where that is, of course, acceptable. But for the majority of our communities, same-day in-person voting is the most secure. It would provide for the quickest election results, as history has shown, and even recent history where it's been applied. So what is your stance on same-day in-person voting?
Yeah, so why not? That's the question. And I asked again to go back to 2024 when I was running and debating Secretary of State Steve Hobbs. The Democrats like to say that we need to make voting accessible, okay? That we ought to be voting in the way that suits us. So why can't we vote in person? It makes absolutely no sense. If the true goal is to increase voter turnout, increase voter confidence, and is to increase the accessibility of our elections, why do we at least not have the option to do it? Well, the reality is because Secretary Hobbs and the Democrats, they don't want us to have the option to do it. They'll say, oh, it's more expensive, etc., etc. It is not more expensive than a two-way ballot. It is absolutely not more expensive than a two-way ballot. This gets into a whole lot of other issues too. We can talk about chain of custody issues. In Congressional District 3, 2024, Joe Kent's in Vancouver, Washington, there was a ballot box that was set fire to, and it was full to the brim. Now, can you guys tell me whose ballots were in there? There's no way. You don't know who dropped off their ballot. You don't know who's in there. And 90% of those ballots were burned to a crisp. That doesn't happen if we have the option to vote in person. Now, and I know that all of us in this room probably have a handful of friends who think showing up does not matter. But if they had the option to vote in person, I would bet my bottom dollar they would show up to vote. So the reality is we have mail-in voting. It is the law of the land. But the question becomes, why do we not get the option to vote in person? And I absolutely think it should be an option if people want to do it. There's no other reason not to. That's it.
Well, the reason that we can't is because the legislature has said that we can't. But we should have a system that does allow the option. It should be open so that folks who want to go vote in person, I would, have that ability to do so. You should be able to choose to have your ballot deferred, and you could go in and you would vote in person just like you would before. But I don't believe that we should take away somebody's ability to vote absentee or by a mail-in ballot in that same system. It should be an option. It should be you should have the ability to choose the way that you would want to participate. Now, this is all hypothetical and in a dream scenario because the legislature has not authorized it. But do you know who else has not authorized it? The people of Spokane County. Because in 2005, the people of Spokane County voted with 57% of the vote to go to the current system that we have. Now, would that change today? Perhaps. Do I think the commissioners, if we were to see the legislature create an option, do I think the commissioners should put that on the ballot as an advisory again because we should always uphold the will of the people? 100%. That should be something that the voters are opting into. And I think that there are a number of improvements we can make. You know, we talked about the firebombing of the box in Vancouver. Well, you know, there was no plan with fire, with police in advance of that. In fact, there were people stomping on ballots when they were trying to remove them from the fire. There are simple things that we should be doing to make sure that we are securing ballots. So that would be first and foremost. You plan. You talk to the fire districts. You talk to the police, and you say, in this instance, what would you do? Why is that so important? Well, because guess what? Your privacy matters, right? Your ballot gets a little fringe, you get something torn, suddenly your name is seen, and so is who you're voting for. That is a huge violation of your privacy. So there are simple things that we need to be doing to protect voters. Hardening those boxes, obviously, is one. And I'm only bringing this up because it was mentioned in the previous statement, but There's a number of things that we can be doing to improve our overall system. But should we give people an option to vote in person? Yes. Have we lost something, I think, pretty dramatically in our community by the change that we have seen? Yes. That civic camaraderie is so important. You spend weeks, months, years even, fighting each other, according to some, treating each other like enemies, which is ridiculous. And you, through that, you should have this end point where you can say, hey, we are coming together for the good of our community, and we're going to turn out together. When I was a kid, I talked about this a lot. My dad would take me out of class every election day, we'd go down to the gymnasium together and vote. And every time you'd see the same Democrat PCO, you'd see the Republican PCO. They get to know you by name, by person, because you see them so often every election day. And it's just this kind of good-hearted, good-spirited feeling that you have. And I think it just changes the way that we treat each other and feel about each other. So I think that, yes, there are a number of things that we can be doing. But if folks want to vote in person, I fully believe, as I have stated over and over and over again, that we should. What I don't think we should do is implement a system that prevents the military from voting, as some have advocated for, that prevents disabled from voting, as some have advocated for, or frankly, that requires government permission, which I just find personally offensive, to decide how you would go about participating in the election. I will not support that. I don't think that that is good governance. I don't think that is the right way to go about it. But at its core, if the legislature is going to make this change, I would like the commissioners to put it on a ballot, and let's get the will of the people involved in this.
So he alluded to some people wanting to not have you apply the ballots. That wasn't me. I believe that you should be able to have ballots if you have fault. And by the way, our ballot boxes do have fire suppression in them already. They're built in. They failed in Vancouver. So they don't work.
Yeah, the fire suppression technology does not work yet, but hopefully someday in the future it will, and we can improve upon that. We can engineer better boxes. There's a lot of number of things we can do. I was not suggesting that you just said that, but that is the statement that has been made by some in our community, and I just want to make it clear that that is not something that I believe in.
Thank you.
Wow.
And now we'll have